Tim, thank you very much for your time. You were sending me a text about a lot of changes, spotter boards, all the things you got to document and get ready for. And that's why you're there. Wisconsin is a mess. I mean, they are an absolute mess, aren't they?
They are. And long conversations today with Luke Fickell and with his staff. You know, Wisconsin has been, in a lot of respects, you think about, overall success stories without having won a national championship, but really overall success stories over the last quarter of a century, when Barry, got that thing going, in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s. And it didn't seem to matter whether Bielema was the coach, whether Paul Chryst was the coach. They were a team that consistently went out and won 9 or 10 games. Now, I think that it's interesting what happens in we talk often about all the issues with fans, whether it's over what's happened at Penn State or Florida, or notably the people that are on the firing watches in places like Auburn, Alabama, and Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Wisconsin, they made a significant decision when they chose not to hire Jim Leonhard, who was considered one of the top defensive coordinators in the country and was up for a number of head coaching jobs. He's now moved on to the NFL, but he was a Wisconsin guy, and they had been promoting from within for years. They decided to hire Luke Fickell away from Cincinnati, who had taken them to the college football playoff when it was only 4 teams, just a handful of years ago. And he's an Ohio State guy. He was an interim coach at one time for the Buckeyes, and now his ties were more to Tressel, obviously, than they were to Urban. But the reality is, and he worked for Urban, but he was more of a Tressel guy. The decision that they made to hire him was considered outside the box. Well, he goes in there, decides to go to a spread air raid offense with Phil Longo, who had tutored the likes of Drake May at North Carolina. And everyone thought, oh, wow, we're going to get away from the run, stop the run, and play really good defense and win close games. And the reason was because fans there were just tired of winning the Western Division, going to the Big Ten championship every year, and getting their clocks cleaned by either Ohio State or Michigan, which seemed to be what was going on. Well, he comes in, changes the offense, and then about halfway through last season, after his 3rd straight quarterback had been hurt and out for the year, he basically said, okay, we got to go back to what we know. And now the fans there are every bit as much on his doorstep in Madison as they are at places like Auburn and Baton Rouge and, you name the others that are out there. Ever since the firing of James Franklin took place, it's like gloves off. The fans, when they say fire his ass, they're going to fire their ass. I mean, that's basically what's transpiring now, I think. And when you think of Wisconsin, I think the administration clearly still wants to stand by the guy. Listen, he didn't just fall off a turnip truck last year after losing his quarterback for the 3rd straight year and suddenly forget how to coach. The man's a successful coach. All you have to do is look at his record. But that doesn't mean anything now. I mean, it doesn't. What matters now to them is we haven't scored in 3 games. We're 2-5. You suck, and that's bad. Okay, and he's managing it fairly well given the circumstances. But I asked him today about, you've never been through this. What's it like? Well, it sucks. He was very honest about it. And then I said, is there anyone, because you're having to own this on your own, is there anyone you can talk to that you can? He said, I hear from D'Antonio and I hear from Jim Tressel, his guys that he played for and worked for as he was coming up. And his Tressel's son is his defensive coordinator, a really good coach, by the way. And he said, no, the reality is this is on me. I got to figure this out. It's up to me to get this thing fixed. And, he's lost a lot of players defensively. Their secondary is thin. Offensively, they're going to be starting their 7th different offensive line in 8 games this weekend. He's playing his 3rd quarterback now of the season. And you're right. It's a mess. And to go up to Eugene after Oregon now has, spit the bit in a game at home against Indiana, they have a point to make. I mean, Oregon is probably lathered up thinking we better pour it on. So it's a very difficult situation. Put it this way. You guys have been in the business a long time. David, you call games. Let's just say Brando's bucket is going to be really full going into Alton Stadium with a lot of material from our second half, because I can't just throw it to Fox and show Shohei Ohtani knocking his third home run in the World Series. We can't just take the FS1 crowd over to Fox. So that's the reason why our game is on FS1, by the way. It's because of the World Series.
Tim, how much do you think that when fans see a quick turnaround that is portal driven, now they don't have to be as patient as they used to be?
Right.
And so they feel maybe more emboldened to be, hey, we need a new guy at Auburn, at LSU, at FSU, at all these places, because you can get a guy and flip it a little faster.
Right. Cignetti is the worst nightmare for every modern-day college football coach there is today. Absolutely. No doubt about it. But what fans forget about what Curt Cignetti did and is in the midst of doing is that he had a magnificent, old-time Division I AA, now FCS team at James Madison that could be the core of that quick turnaround. Okay? He brought really good players from James Madison with him and proved that a team at that level, combined with some other guys that came through the portal at a big-time level that were really well handpicked. I mean, you got to give him a lot of credit. I mean, you got to give him a ton of credit. But at the same time, he had advantages there that Deion, had when he left Jackson State to go to Colorado. I mean, he took some really good players with him, got him almost to the Big 12 title game, not quite, but almost. But you see what's happened since some of them have left. It's not as easy for Deion now as it was then. But guys like Belichick and these other guys that have come in, it's not as easy when you're trying to do it from the ground up if you don't have a core group that follows you in there. The reality is that at some of these places, they don't want to run you immediately always. That it hasn't changed at Auburn or at LSU or at places. SEC schools, by and large, the moment somebody says fire his ass, they're fired. They're gone. That's just the way it works in that league. But you don't expect that to happen at places like Wisconsin as easily. But it could be happening to him. I mean, it really could. And with these buyouts where they are, seemingly the schools are still up to taking care of it. And how are they able to take care of it? Because of the incredible amount of revenue that's coming into those particular schools in those said conferences that are reaping the benefit of monies coming from, beautiful public companies like the one I work for and one with 4 letters that pretty much owns most of the inventory in college football. And it's an endless cycle, guys. It's not going to stop. It's really not.
Tim, I know like myself and many others, you got your eyes on Texas Tech and were very impressed, but huge win for Arizona State this past weekend. And I think Kenny Dillingham, one of those guys, kind of like a Cignetti, that you hope he'll stay in Tempe and really build that thing. But I'm sure he's going to have and already has had plenty of phone calls to his agent's office the last couple of weeks. But your thoughts on Dillingham in the big picture and what he's done at Arizona State, but also how that's shaken up kind of what we thought as far as Tech being the team to beat, plus adding in now BYU beating Utah.
Well, I'll be shocked if he ever leaves Tempe. That's his dream job. And by the way, he's turned it into a destination job. And he always said that's what it should have been. And you know what? It's true. It really should have been at Arizona State. The problem at ASU was its administration. It was being run right into the toilet by bad presidents, chancellors, and athletic directors. And it wasn't as if they didn't have some success there. They did have some success there at given times, but they couldn't maintain it because the administration didn't understand the way it works in college football. And by the way, much of that administration was part of a Pac-12, which was in the midst of driving itself right into a ditch before the Big 12 came in and took some of their really good teams, including ASU. And, of course, the Big Ten did the same thing with the 4 teams that they got out of the Pac-12 to help bring that to extinction. Now it's going to resurface, as we know, with a handful of teams that people don't know nearly as much about next year. But that's what happened. Dillingham loves that place, went to school there, dreamed of being a head football coach, and to be head football coach in his hometown. I mean, went to Chaparral High School, highly noted school there. I would have told Texas Tech, if you guys had talked to me before that game, I would have told you, I think Arizona State, this is the one place Texas Tech could lose. They were up against the wall against TCU down 17 in a game that we had on a Friday night a few weeks back, right before the flooding started in Arizona. Isn't that great? Go to the land of the sun for just a few days with me, and all of a sudden they've got record floods taking place in the valley there, in the Valley of the Sun. But they played just the way I thought they would play in the second half, down 17-0, and they lost the way they did in that game to Utah because they didn't have Leavitt. Leavitt is everything to that team. I mean, if there's one player of greater value to his team in college football this year, if it's not Sam Leavitt, I don't know who it is. Without Cam Scatteraboo, they really need him. They need that extra quote-unquote runner that you have to account for, as well as his arm. And Jordan Tyson's arguably one of, if not the most spectacular wide receiver in the country. I thought the Tech might be in trouble in that game, even though Texas Tech is clearly, in my opinion, the best team in every phase of the game in the Big 12. Arizona State is a very solid second team out of the league to go to the playoff, in my view. If it's anybody else that has a better record in the second position to Texas Tech, I don't know that they get to go to the playoff. But Arizona State's resume, its currency, based on what they did a year ago, if they can run the table from this point forward and play for and even lose again, okay, in a rematch with Texas Tech, which could happen, then I think Arizona State still would have an opportunity to go to the playoff. I think they're that good. But to your point about Dillingham, the phone's going to ring and he's got to deal with it. But I'm just telling you what the character of that young man is and what he wants to do. He has carte blanche there, and no other coach has had that kind of carte blanche. Whatever he wants, he gets. Very similar to what Lane Kiffin has at Ole Miss. And that's exactly why the toxic Gator fans are going to be holding their noses when they get the news from Lane that he's not coming. And I'm telling you, he's not coming.
Yeah, I've seen you have a few back and forths on your Twitter feed about that.
Oh, you think?
Yeah.
No, they'll never get it. The fans in Florida will never get it. They fail to understand their own history, okay? And the history is Spurrier is not going to walk through that door again. And that's what they want. They want Spurrier to walk through that door again. And he's not. There are no Steve Spurriers out there anymore. And even if there were, it's going to take a lot more than just, a coach with a visor and the ability to troll other coaches the way Steve did. And that's why they're thinking Lane is the answer. They want the closest thing to Lane that they can find. And it's good luck with Drinkwitz if that's your guy, because it's not going to be Lane.
Well,
go ahead, Paul.
I appreciate Tim calling out Gator fans. They are a problem.
What are you going to do with your guy, Mr. Florida State? What's going to happen there?
I know.
You want to go? You want to go there, Catalina?
Yeah, no,
you want to go there?
I actually do, because you and I are probably going to agree on this.
Okay.
When Florida State got snubbed, that caused them to not operate from a position of rationality. They have been making emotional decisions throughout, including giving Mike Norvell a ridiculous contract that he he had deserved a bump, but not this, given the fact that if he wants to go to Alabama, you got to let him. I mean, you just got to do it. And don't let the agent hold you hostage. But since then, every decision they've made has been emotionally charged, and it's been bad, and they find themselves in this position, not just because Mike Norvell is a bit of an up-and-down coach, but because of leadership all up and down.
Right. By the way, speaking of Norvell, that's where I first met Mike as a coordinator at Arizona State. And you know what? He is a good coordinator, a really good coordinator. But as a head coach, I mean, he had that one incredible season, sure. But to your point, these athletic directors who's spending somebody else's money, I've never gotten this. I've never quite understood it. Why would you give that much of a contract extension to him based on that 1 year? Yeah, a bump is fine. That's good. But these contract extensions that they've been given, and that's, again, their failure. These athletic directors are failing to understand how the game has changed. Okay, it's no longer about making sure that the recruits in the high schools know that their coach is going to be there. Hell, half those recruits aren't even being recruited anymore. Okay, there's a select number of in-state kids you might get, and the rest you're trying to pony up with your people to get enough cash to get them in the portal. That's how that works today. A couple of years ago, we were sitting there saying, boy, oh boy, did Norvell take advantage of Dabo Sweeney's inability to get in the modern day and start spending some money in the portal. Well, that actually did help him that year. I mean, it did. No question about it. But then Dabo got the memo. Of course, he still mismanaged it. And speaking of, people who could be on his way out, that's another one. That is another storyline that's still waiting to unfold after what SMU did to them. Yeah, you and I agree on that. Florida State made I didn't waste any time going after your people, Paul, when they did what they did to Bowden. I mean, that was, you talk about below the belt to a legend, what they did to him. And all he wanted was one more stinking year, and they wouldn't do it. And, their only defense was, well, the school's not doing it. The fans are, okay? The donors are. Still, I'm like, yeah, well, that just tells me all I need to know about your rich people.
If the school was doing it, we would have let him stay if Jimbo was going to be the coach anyway. I mean, that was So it was 1 year. I mean, it was 1 year. That's really all the guy wanted, and he could have gone. Bobby Bowden deserved to go out on his terms, and that's really the only terms that he necessarily wanted.
Tim, last question for you. And we're going to have a great broadcast. Also, trying to figure out what's up or down with that spotter board. You have Georgia Tech, Indiana, and Vanderbilt inside the top 10. I know you have your own top 10. Obviously, BYU's huge win against Utah. How much good would it do college football, if those teams were to make not only a run into the playoff, but also win a game or two?
Well, it would certainly embarrass the hell out of ESPN, wouldn't it? I mean, I think it would embarrass the hell out of them. Do they even know BYU played Utah last week? I don't know that they do. I don't know that they do. I was home on Saturday. I love doing Friday games, by the way. Love doing Friday games. And because I can get home and have this smorgasbord. And last week was just incredible. Yeah. And people may say to me, well, you're out there doing those games in the Big Ten. You're not watching the hell. But the hell I'm not. I'm watching more football now. And being able to get into it with my multiple screens and my DVD capability, all right, and watch more in-depth football than I ever did, even when I was in the studio at CBS. These guys, what's happened is, and it's, I pointed out ESPN because they just don't want to talk about the Big 12. I mean, at all. Yormark got a nice television deal out of them, and that's great. But he needs to make a few calls about editorial content on those shows. I mean, that show lasts for 3 hours, and I don't think the Holy War. And granted, Big Noon's throwing their own 2-hour party at wherever the Big Ten game is going to be, and they rarely, if ever, talk about some of the teams maybe in the ACC. But I mean, college football is still not being covered nationally the way it needs to be covered. That's my one overbearing take about what we in the media are not doing properly. But when you got 2 hours on one network and 3 hours on another, and you can't bring yourself to talk about what what Georgia Tech's doing, what Utah's doing. Listen, last year Arizona State was one coverage bust away from playing in the semifinals of the college football playoff, and most of America knew nothing about them. They might have heard about Scattaboo, right? Maybe him, but that was it. BYU, yes, most people in college football, what about that team? Yeah, they got some guy wearing number 47 playing quarterback. They don't know about Bachmeier or what Bachmeier's brother did or any of those things. There's all kinds of storylines, and yet most of America doesn't know anything about them. So, yeah, I find myself always rooting for those teams because I have no dogs in the fight. I'm not a fan, but I am a fan of exposing, okay, how brand name oriented we in the media have become. And the reason we do it is because we're too damn lazy to keep up with the teams that are not, quote unquote, in our circle. Okay. Just because you're on a network that's not covering that team doesn't make what those other teams achieve less significant. If something's going on ESPN that's a hell of a lot more important to anything other than college football, and I happen to be on Fox and something happened that night that was on their air, do you think for 1 minute that I'm not going to suggest that something big happened someplace else on some other network? Hell yeah, David, I'm going to do that. Okay? We don't cover the sport nationally the way it deserves to be covered. It is the second most popular sport in America. More people are watching college football than any other sport besides the Shield on Sundays. And yet it's making about a fourth of what the NBA and Major League Baseball are making in television rights. And by God, it's time we started, putting our money where our mouth is and start covering it nationally the way it deserves to be covered.
Hey, man, have a great broadcast, and thank you so much for your time whenever we can get it. Enjoy the game and also all of the changes with what Luke Fickell's trying to turn that thing around. It is in the ditch. Well, appreciate your time. Yeah.
Well, maybe with bad weather, right? It's supposed 90% rain. Maybe there'll be a bunch of fumbles. Maybe they'll have a good game. You never know.
Yeah, maybe. Right? Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, as always, all of you in the chat. Love